it was a time of revolution, only in many ways was an inward revolution. We know from studying these cycles that anytime Uranus and Pluto get together, they're two very naughty planets, and there's an upheaval of some kind. It can be basically in every walk of life there's an upheaval, because you have a planet of invention and revolution and freedom from the status quo, and then you have Pluto giving it depth and a real internal soul level point of focus and contact with Pluto. There's different manifestations of revolution, but there are almost always scientific breakthroughs and cultural breakthroughs. But I believe in one of Rick's books, he talked about historians, Rick Tarnas, being at a loss to explain the revolutions moving across Europe faster than the mail could travel, which to me, just even as an experienced astrologer, just opened up a level of understanding to astrology and how it's a kind of a vector. A period that comes to mind is the period of the French Revolution, where you had this extremely idealistic, it wasn't just a revolution, it was the égalité, fraternité, papier, as I call it. That's a French joke. Égalité, liberté, fraternité, brotherhood, liberty, freedom, equality is a way to kind of frame Uranus provoked by Pluto, I think. So for example, and there were many revolutions at that time in history, plus we're in the middle of the Enlightenment and the early phases of the scientific revolution, so there's a revolution in thought going on, which was part and parcel of the French Revolution, overthrowing church dogma. Notre Dame was desecrated and turned into the Church of Reason, and damaged. I mean, and they were going to tear it down, and someone prevented them from tearing down Notre Dame Cathedral. And then eventually it was, I guess, given back to the church. My take on Uranus is that it's an energy of brilliance, invention. It's a light that blazes through the darkness of stuffy old ideas about what was. And if you accept the Promethean approach to Uranus, which I happen to like that archetype a lot as a way to describe Uranus, Promethean means forward thinking. And so Uranus is certainly a forward-thinking kind of energy. It's one reason why it's associated with inventions. To wit, the airplane. The first flight of an airplane at Kitty Hawk was, I believe, a Uranus-Sun conjunction in Sagittarius with Aquarius rising. I mean, it's like, well, that's a pretty good description of the Uranian archetype. These guys were brave and determined and inventive and, in a way, revolutionaries. To get off the ground, I mean, that's pretty cool. But they were bicycle guys. It wasn't like Henry Ford who made the airplane. So in a way, there may be a simplicity to Uranus, where it has a kind of a sweeping quality to it, a touch of Occam's razor, that a simple solution is the solution to work with. The word concentrated comes to mind. Pluto seems to be like a very focalized lens that brings experience in a concentrated but sometimes unconscious way. Often it works below awareness and moves awareness without one necessarily really being aware of it. It's closer in energy to Neptune, I think, than most people have observed, because it's got this ubiquitous quality. It's so large, it's so all-encompassing. And what I find that it does is it moves growth rapidly. It creates necessity that facilitates the movement of growth, and it does a very good job of taking us from one phase of life to another. I don't think that Pluto's been excluded as a planet. Rather, I think it's the most dramatic and well-established proving of the efficacy and power of minor planets, because Pluto has almost all characteristics of a minor planet. How steep it approaches the ecliptic, the size, how different it is than other planets, the weird long ellipse that it has. It's more like Chiron than it is like any other planet. So it has an a visitor quality to it, an exterior quality to it, and I think that it demonstrates that we need to really pay attention to small bodies. Now, the designation of Pluto as a dwarf planet, I think, has an important symbolic value, because what it did was it took the presumed edge of the solar system, the edge of reality. One of the ways I think of these progressions of discoveries from Uranus on out through Neptune is a conceptualization of the edge. And so through the 20th century, which Pluto really was the 20th century edge, we had I call it the death works phase of human history, where when in doubt, just try death. And what I like about, defining Eris as the edge at least puts us into a human realm, and it reminds us how chaotic our conception of the personality has become. And so,
what's Eris?
Eris is the largest minor planet. It was discovered in 2005, and it's currently the most distant object known from the Sun. And it has a big designation because it is bigger than Pluto. And so because it's bigger than Pluto, it forced the question of what is a planet, what is not a planet. And there was a big fuss in the summer of 2006, and the solar system was, in effect, organized for the first time, and the term planet was defined for the first time. So Eris became a dwarf planet, Pluto was classified a dwarf planet, and then Minor Planet 1 Ceres, the first asteroid, was classified as a dwarf planet. And so we got this new group of planets called dwarf planets. When I see Uranus and Pluto together in a birth chart, the first thing I want to do is look for how emphasized the conjunction is in the birth chart. There are people who have it really strong, like, for example, rising, or at the tippy top of the chart, culminating. And there are people who have it weaker, where it's not making any aspects to other planets, or where it's not picking up the angles in the chart that give energetic emphasis to a planet that help integrate it into the personality. So that's the first thing I'm checking for. The second thing I'm checking for is evidence in the person's life that they are expressing that energy in some way. So I'll check carefully to see where and how they're expressing that energy. People who express Uranus, Pluto strongly tend to be iconoclastic. They want to do things their own way. There's an independent streak that they have. But there's a dark side to it as well, which I would describe as a good Nazi streak, where people take that Virgo power to a level where they are in service of something much larger than themselves, but they're not entirely sure what they're in service for, or in the alternate, they know they're in service of something that is really not that helpful, but they don't really necessarily see a way out of that paradox. And my sense is that people are having an activation of Uranus, Pluto. Now a lot are going through their Uranian oppositions, and so we're seeing Uranus aspecting, repeating, in a sense, the astrology of their birth, and so there's a stirring to life of this aspect, and it's largely manifesting as life mission questions. What do I really do? Wow, I've succeeded in my career. I've done all this stuff. I've built a life myself. Wow, I've got a hybrid SUV, but I really need to do something that expresses my true calling on the planet.